Good morning. Today we're going to make 3 acrylic pens, and we're going to start with the brass that goes in the middle to hold the pen together. So first thing we need to do is mark our acrylic pieces. We're going to give it about 1/8 of an inch on each end. And one thing you want to make sure when you're marking is that you keep your 2 pieces separate or together, so to speak. You keep your 2 pieces together so the grain matches up when you're finishing with your pen. In the case of this turquoise, you don't really have to do that. Give yourself a little bit of error on each end. I tend to mark the pieces an end to end, so these 2 sections are the closest together so your grain matches up the best possible. Okay, so this is the long end. This is the shorter end, and now we're going to cut them. Here we are at the bandsaw, and I'm going to tell you a little instructions here before I turn the machine on. We're going to cut the end off, and then we're going to cut it down the middle. Always remember to keep your hands far from your blade, and to move slow. This isn't a quick job. And to wear eye protection. Okay, here we go. I'm going to turn this off before I could cut this last one because, as you noticed, I don't have my safety thing on here. It got misplaced, so I'm going to kick those pieces out. I know a few of you got a little scared about that. I'm going to cut this one out. Okay, you'll also notice I marked the long and the short end of my acrylic, and that's so I don't have to think every time and remeasure it that this is actually the holding end of my pen, and that's the short end. So now we'll go and drill the holes. Okay, so here we are at my drill press, and you can see I don't have real expensive clamping equipment. One of the main things that we use then is we use the fence, which of course is perpendicular and square to the drill. And then I'm using a quick grip to clamp that on and making sure that I am straight up in the air, so when I drill the hole here it comes out the center or close enough to center on the other side. There is some room for error that won't really matter. We're going to go slow, bringing it out 4 or 5 times to bring the acrylic out so it doesn't jam up inside. And make sure you wear your eye protection. Okay, here we go. Okay, you'll notice that I'm using some wood underneath it, so when it does go through, it doesn't break out the bottom. And you see it's not centered exactly, but that's okay because there's enough room there to turn our pen. We're going to go ahead and drill the rest of these, and then we'll put them on the mandrel and show you how we turn. So now we're in the house where it's a little bit warmer than in the shop, and you can see we've got our holes drilled. And they're not exactly perfect, but there's enough room for error on all of those. I've got them marked long and short, and I have a mark across the middle so you can tell which way the pen's going to go together. This is real important when you have grain, like in this one here, so the pen matches. Otherwise it ends up looking something like that. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and sandpaper these up. You want to rough the brass up a little bit so the glue sticks to the acrylic. So you can see we have the long and the short, so I'm going to grab the long brass, and we'll do that one first. Always, just like in any woodworking, dry fit your brass first to make sure it's going to work fine. It's the right size, the hole's good. I'm going to put some CA. I like this because it dries not too fast. This is medium CA. I'm going to put a little bit on here. It gives me time to work with it so it's not drying too fast. And we're going to gently stick it in. Roll it around a little bit, pull it back out. You can stick in the other end if you like. I don't see that has a big benefit. And then get it in there a little ways. You can use the end of another tube, just push it in a little farther, just so it's in on each side. So when we clean those ends up, the brass isn't sticking out. And we'll do the second one. Twist it a little bit, make sure you get in there. You don't have a lot of time, but just get it in each end. It's fine. All right, and there we go. 2 of those are done, and we'll do the other 2. So now we've got our brass insert glued down in with that CA, and we're ready to clean up the ends. So this here is a pen mill, and it inserts. It does a couple things at the same time. Cleans out the middle, as well as flatten this and makes it perpendicular to the brass. And I just hold it, although I probably should have it down in a vise. But we just take it out till we can see that nice and shiny on the end. So I also marked these as the long and the short, and put a line so I know that's the proper position, not this way. Would be important if there was some specific grain. So we're ready to put the blank on the mandrel. And if you'll remember, we marked them long and short and lined them up with the line, so in the case if this was one with wood grain or a specific design, it would match up in the center. I like to put my short end on the left side, so I'm going to put that bushing in for this particular pen set. Put my short one on, make sure I'm lined up with the grain. Put my center bushing on. My long piece, this will be the tip of my pen, the writing end. Put the bushing for that size. And this mandrel is going to require a little spacer. And tighten it up. And a little bit, not very tight, fairly loose. We don't want to bend the mandrel, and we're ready to go. So we're ready to put it on the lathe. You can see I have a central machinery lathe here from Harbor Freight. Works just fine. So we have it on the mandrel, just finger tight. Put it in there and bring my live center up to it. And again, we're not tightening it down, we're just holding it there. Okay, I'm using a wide rest here because I can't find my shorter one. And that'll work, just got to be careful. And again, safety at all costs. Let's use our face shield. We're going to run this kind of fast. It cuts better. And we're going to use the system where we just come in close, touching it. You can see how nice that peels off, and it's nice, particularly at that fast RPM. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. So you can see I've turned this down to the bushings on this end and on this end, but I want you to know this is a Summit pen, and this is what we're trying to accomplish here. So we're going to cut a tenon right here that will accommodate this part of the pen. So to give you an example of what it's going to look like, this is what we're creating here. The tenon fits here. So here's another one I've made, so you can kind of see what we're doing. That piece will fit on snug or super glue down to the tenon. And then it'll fit in nicely to the pen. So we have a nice, turnable, smooth pen. That's what we're accomplishing. So let's cut the tenon. So we're going to cut the tenon now. We're going to use a parting tool. But before I do that, I want you to notice this piece here. It's part of the pen. It will go with your pen. It came in your kit. You want to be very careful when turning so as not to scratch it. Some people will put a piece of tape across it, so when they touch the tape, they realize they're too close. You can tape it out of the way. I try to keep it moved out of the way. Just be very careful, particularly when sanding. When sanding, you could take your mandrel apart, remove it, and then sand down. So let's cut the tenon. Again, remember, safety, wear your face shield. I just wanted to mention that this is a piece you see that has scratches in it. I've turned a number of these Summit pens, so this is just a piece that I use as a spare part, and I'm not too worried about scratching it. Okay, so you can see it fits nicely across, and we'll put a drop of super glue on it. Now we're going to turn this down till it just comes to the surface of that, so it planes fine across the top, no gapping, and then we'll come back and show you the final product. So we're ready to sand, and if you look at my mandrel here, you'll notice that I took off that center piece of the pen. You can use that piece on your pen. This way you can avoid scratching it. Put everything back together, just a loose fit. And I'm going to start with a 400 to take down the rough edges, the high spots, and then I'm going to go to 800, 1000, 1500, and 2000. This is wet dry sandpaper, so I use water. Covering my lathe with a towel so to protect it from the water so we don't get rust. Now where we're living right now, it's a little cold outside, so I warm my water up in the microwave. You don't want to spend too much time on one area because this is an acrylic, and as it gets hot from friction, it can melt. So we've used our sandpaper and sanded it down to a fine finish. Now we're going to buff it up. We're going to use a simple paper towel because it's nice and soft, and a little bit of buffing solution. So we're just going to put a little bit on there. And you can pretty much use any buffing solution that you like. Could be a car polish, or they make specialty products in your woodworking store. There's some links below that I'm attaching. Feel free to click on those if you want to get some of those products. One other comment, you'll notice there's a little bit of dark on my paper towel. It's from buffing my bushings. You might want to buff those first. Some people will do that just to take that off, and then either get a new paper towel, fold it under, and buff the rest of it. So we're ready to do the final assembly. You can use any kind of fancy, expensive equipment, or this is standard stuff that are in most guys' workshops. This is, again, the Summit pen. So it'll come like this, and these are the parts. This part here we're going to assemble first. It's the top, and it has a little piece here. So we're going to put it into the top of the pen. We can use the clamp, or we can use the vise. So this is just my quick grip again. It only goes in one way. Follow the directions on your pen to make sure you're not putting it in backwards. Once it's in, it won't come out. Okay, now if you'll notice on here, if you can see, it sticks out just a little bit. Now, I've actually taken the head of a nail sometimes, if you don't have a nice vise, and tap it with a hammer, and that'll tap it in, or you can just use your vise. Very gently, making it flush. And that'll fit on real nice to the top. I will always hold it up to the light, look through, make sure it fits fine. The next thing we're going to assemble is put that ring on there. This is the brand new one. Make sure it fits in nice. If it doesn't go on snug, you can always put a little drop of super glue on it, and that's what we're going to do. Making sure that you don't get the glue on your fingers here or on your pen, because you won't get it off. Just a little dab is all you need. Make sure your pen's going on correctly. Put it on there. Set it aside. Okay, now let's assemble the pen. First thing we're going to do is put the tip in. When you put this in your vise, it will have a tendency to wiggle one way or the other. So you want to make sure it stays straight as you slowly tighten it up. Always follow the directions on your pen installation. For example, put the tip in first and then the pen mechanism. If you put the pen mechanism in first and then try to push the pen tip in, this might go in too far. And again, you can't get it back out. So nice and gentle. I'm going to use a paper towel as a padding on my vise. And then nice and slowly bring it down flush and snug it up. Not too tight. This is acrylic. Even with wood, you don't want to crack it. I'm going to use my quick grip again to get it started because my vise isn't really large and I won't be able to open it up far enough. So I'm going to use my quick grip clamp to get it started. Straightening it up. The directions show to put it to that point there. There's a line on your pen. Always follow that direction. If you go too far, it might cause you trouble. With this particular pen set, it seems that it needs to go maybe even a 1/4 inch further than that. Okay, so I've got it in a little bit started there. I'm going to now take it to the vise and bring it down to that line. This is much easier than using a quick grip. Now, my advice is to put the pen together so you can see how it's going to do. So you screw in your ink and then twist the mechanism so the pen sticks out the end, and you can see it's not coming out. I'm looking inside. It looks like I need to go about another 1/4 inch. So I'm going to take the pen out again. And since this is nice and silvery, I can't see how far I'm going. I'm going to mark a line and say, okay, I'm going to compress it up to that point. If you had to put it in your vise 3 or 4 times, it's better than going too far. Again, it's not coming out the end yet, but I can see the tip there within a 1/16 of an inch. I want it sticking out maybe of a 1/4 of an inch or a little less. I'm going to compress it a little more. And again, you can see that there. It's coming out now a 1/16. I want it a little bit more. When you're using a vise like this, make sure your pen's always square in the vise. Okay. That comes out just about perfect. I'm going to leave it right there. I like that. Okay. So now let's assemble the second half. It's drying over here. Put the pen together. And there you have our final product. A nice Summit pen made out of a turquoise acrylic. We're back, and you can see the 3 pens on the left here, the 3 that we've turned today. They turned out really nice. And we've thrown an assortment of pens out here to show you that there's different colors, different styles. The acrylics are really exciting. There's a couple wood grains down there that are also real enjoyable to make. Please click the link below if you'd like to buy some high quality, inexpensive kits or products. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.